I can't believe that it's been barely 24 hours since the Boston Marathon bombing, which we've covered extensively, and already there are just so many conspiracy theories to talk about. I want to just get in front of this right away and say, not that there is no conspiracy theory, because it is very hard to prove a negative, but again, if someone is going to propose a theory, we need to look at whether there is evidence that supports that there is some kind of conspiracy. And I think you'll see that so far what's been presented is nothing of the sort. Number one, within minutes of the bombing, we saw an Alex Jones video. We saw posts to Infowars.com, the website run by Alex Jones. We saw a post to the Natural News website come up later on after the bombing, suggesting a number of different conspiracy theories. In fact, Alex Jones's reporter, who is up here in our area in the northeast of the U.S., in the second press conference after the bombing, directly asked Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick whether this was a false flag set up to further infringe on civil liberties. Here's what happened.
Did you take any questions?
Well, sir, why were loudspeakers telling people in the audience to be calm moments before the bomb went off? Is this another false flag stage attack to take our civil liberties and promote homeland security or sticking the hands down on the pants on the street?
No. Next question.
So first of all, one of the first videos we did, a video that got all just under, right now as I look at it, 24 hours after we posted it, about 1 million views on YouTube. We posted two pictures that were from Twitter streams just after the Boston Marathon bombing. People have pointed out that there is a suspicious man on the roof in this picture and that this points to some kind of conspiracy. So again, we have someone on a roof near a public event walking in the direction that the explosion took place. This is not a conspiracy theory. Certainly this is not proof of any conspiracy theory. We have a guy on a roof. That's it. People go on roofs all the time. There was no security that was to the extent when President Obama comes to visit, where people aren't allowed to be on rooftops. This is just a guy on the roof. If this is the basis for your so-called conspiracy theory, I think there's probably a lot missing there. Then we had the more detailed conspiracy theories talking about the false flag, right? The idea that this may have been a government orchestrated, or at least the government allowed to happen or was complicit in some way, bombing, such that it would create a pretext under which the TSA would take over, or there would be further infringement on civil liberties, or maybe guns would be taken away, or who knows what the purpose would be, but that's the idea, a false flag, that there was advanced planning, advanced knowledge on the behalf of government officials about this and some of the specifics. Let's look at those specifics, okay? One is bomb-sniffing dogs. It's been widely reported that bomb-sniffing dogs were at the Boston Marathon. Now, some conspiracy theorists are saying they only showed up afterwards and very quickly, and that's suspicious because why are there all these bomb-sniffing dogs available? Others saying, no, it's true, the bomb-sniffing dogs were there before the bombs went off, but that's what's suspicious because why would there be bomb-sniffing dogs in these situations? Let's explore that. Number one, here is Canine Cop magazine. This is not a new issue of this, and as you can see, they are featuring the Boston Police Department, okay? So when we look at this, we have to think to ourselves, well, if it's so rare that Boston police have canines and have dogs that are bomb-sniffing dogs, why would they be featured 3 years ago in Canine Cop magazine? And further, Boston EOD K-9 teams also participate in joint training with the Boston Police Department bomb squad for IED scenarios. So we have evidence from years ago that Boston has trained dogs, trained K-9 teams to sniff out bombs, and they had those dogs at the Boston Marathon. That doesn't sound like much of a conspiracy. It goes on, and we actually have more information where we say people saying, well, what evidence is there that the Boston Marathon was any kind of a drill for anything? Some people at the time, in the heat of the moment, thought it was a drill. Listen, let's assume they weren't mistaken, okay? We actually have evidence, looking all the way back to April 18th of 2011, from Homeland Security Watch, that the Boston Marathon is actually an event which is used for preparedness and training. The Boston Marathon, again, this is quite a big conspiracy if this was all lined up years ago. K-9 teams and the Boston Marathon used as a training event. It's all there. There is really no conspiracy there based on what's been presented so far. We've got to be open to all options. Then we go to the Saudi National arrest report, which was retracted. And the allegation is, well, listen, initially a few media outlets started to leak that a Saudi national had been held or arrested or was in custody or was being questioned. Now it's being retracted because it's the cover-up, right? In other words, it's all part of the cover-up. Either the cover-up is they wanted us to think that there was a Saudi national because it's not really the Saudis who did this, it's the government, or this guy was connected with the actual bombing, but it's not part of the planned narrative. There's really no credible actual arrest claim. There were conflicting reports that someone was under guard. Under guard is not an arrest. It turns out indeed that there was a man, possibly of Saudi descent, who was being talked to. It now appears he was a witness. There is really no conflict other than the fact that early reports are often wrong. And they seem to have been wrong in this case. Again, if your conspiracy depends on the fact that a Saudi national was talked to and didn't do it, it's a little bit weak. Okay, then we have the narrative that the mainstream media is now warrantlessly blaming right-wing extremists. This isn't a narrative. There have been a number of terrorism experts, whether you believe they're experts or not is a different story, who have suggested that certain types of explosives are more reminiscent of Al-Qaeda, and certain types of explosives, like C4, for example, or fertilizer-type bombs, explosives, etc., those are not reminiscent of Al-Qaeda, but might be reminiscent of more domestic or right-wing terror. That's it. There's no conspiracy there. There has been no concerted effort to blame the right wing. Certainly there have been questions from all sorts of places, but just because a blog might say, hey, right-wingers did this, or because Twitter people might say, oh, Muslims did this, not really evidence of any conspiracy. It's evidence of really the obvious thing, which is we just don't know exactly what happened. And then lastly, as evidence of a conspiracy, the third bomb located at JFK Presidential Library was found and detonated too quickly for it to really have been an honest a situation that people didn't have planned already. The latest report from the press conference earlier today was that there were only 2 explosive devices, the 2 that detonated that we see clearly on the videos that have been circulating. The JFK Presidential Library incorrectly was assumed to be part of the entire bombing. It wasn't. It just had nothing to do with it, and that's it. So again, we have got to look at it piece by piece. For conspiracy theorists who will never be satisfied and they'll say, you haven't proven that it wasn't a conspiracy. If you are proposing the conspiracy, you've got to come up with the evidence that it exists. And there are such simple explanations here to every aspect that's been presented so far that it does not make sense to go down that path. Let's explore all options. Let's open ourselves up to all ideas. Sometimes governments do things. So far, we have pretty simple explanations.